Mr. Heck of Watertown offers an amendment in the hands of the clerk. Clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment number 3. Mr. Hecht of Watertown moves to amend the order in Rule 17A by inserting in line 475 after the words executive session the following: all testimony at hearings and other...
Chair hears no objection. The clerk will dispense with the further reading of the amendment. The chair hears none. Question comes on the adoption of the amendment. The chair recognizes Mr. Heck of Watertown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through you to the members. This amendment number 3 would create more consistency regarding certain basic aspects of House committees. And I should mention, since our House rules can only govern House committees, I did file an amendment also to the joint rules that would apply these same ideas to our joint committees. First of all, the amendment would make testimony and other materials submitted to committees available to House members and the public, subject to certain exceptions to protect privacy and confidentiality. Second, it would extend a rule that currently applies to the House Ways and Means Committee to all House committees regarding the time that committee members have to review redrafted bills prior to a committee vote. That would be a 24-hour period. That's the current rule at House Ways and Means, and it would be applied to other House committees. And third, it would provide that the results of electronic committee polls would be posted to the website. Our current rule only requires that roll call votes taken in an executive session are posted. And as we all know, the electronic polls are increasingly common. They're a very convenient tool for us to use, so we don't have to come into the State House to vote at an executive session. So this amendment would just extend that same rule to electronic polls. And I want to make clear that in offering this amendment, I recognize that many committees already do these things. I have had many, many wonderful chairs of committees during my time in the House who have really gone above and beyond to make sure that members are informed, to be transparent, to give us access to materials. I have personally also had some not so good experiences, including a committee that refused me access to testimony on a bill. It was not a controversial bill. It was a bill that some constituents of mine were interested in, and I wanted to inform myself about testimony that had been given on the bill, and I was told that I could not look at it. So this amendment would establish these basic principles of transparency as House rules and would standardize these practices against all of the House committees rather than having a patchwork or having one's ability to do one's job with respect to committees turn on the luck of the draw as far as the chair. I hope this amendment is adopted, and again, I would call for a call of the yeas and nays.
Mr. Heck of Watertown moves that when a vote on this matter be taken, to be taken by the call of the yeas and nays. Those joining with him will please rise. Monitors will return the count. First division. 2. Second division. 16. Sufficient amount having arisen when a vote on this matter is taken, to be taken by the call of the yeas and nays. House will be in a brief recess.
Chair recognizes Ms. Sabadosa of Northampton.
Thank you to the Speaker, and thank you to the members through you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to represent my district and to talk to you about things that they truly care about. I rise to speak in favor of the amendment filed by the representative from Watertown. I, of course, am not speaking here to convey my personal views about this amendment, but to share with you what my constituents, the people of the 1st Hampshire District, Northampton, Hatfield, Southampton, Westhampton, and Montgomery, have reached out in droves over the past few days to tell me. They're frustrated. They're frustrated by the very things that this amendment seeks to address. My district is not a quiet district. It is filled with activists, organizers, and concerned citizens who sound the alarm regularly about issues that matter to them. And those issues are wide-ranging. Just last week, dozens of my constituents traveled to the State House for a Medicare for All lobby day, traveling the 2 hours by car because there's no public transportation. These people show up, and yet they're frustrated because they have no idea what happens to bills they're following. They're confused as to why so many bills are sent to study, with seemingly broad support from membership. They're confused as to why a bill is not moved forward after multi-hour hearings with very little opposition and dozens of people present who speak in favor of the legislation. They're confused because they want to advocate and participate in our democracy, something I know we all value and work to preserve as public servants. But they have no idea how to really do that because the process feels murky to them and difficult, even for very savvy advocates. Amendment 3 is not going to fix all of this, but it will start, and it is a start that my constituents are truly demanding. They're demanding that I get up here today to share this. The very basic idea of making testimony and other written materials available to House members and the public, unless, of course, a confidentiality is requested, gives our voters a way of finding out what's going on, especially for those of us who can't just take a T-ride to the State House. Receiving a copy of a redrafted bill 24 hours before a vote is a simple step to ensure that members can return to their districts to explain why we have cast a certain vote on a bill in committee. It gives members the time to actually read what's going to be before them and make the best possible decisions for our districts. Finally, making our votes public is a courtesy that we just owe our constituents. They did not elect us to work behind closed doors. They remind me of that daily. They want to know everything that's going on here, and I want to share that with them. I am here to be their voice, and I am accountable to them, as are we all. Public committee votes is common practice in everything from school committees to the Congress, and the Massachusetts State House should be no different. Thank you.
House will be in order. Question comes on the adoption of the amendment. The chair recognizes Mr. Cabral of New Bedford.
Mr. Speaker, through you to the members, I rise in opposition to this amendment. Let me begin by saying that I have the greatest respect for the gentleman of Watertown. He's a thoughtful person. He's a respectful person of other people's ideas. And that's what this is about. It's about debating ideas and proposals, and we can be friends and still disagree. We can have respect for one another and still can disagree. There is no other amendment as of now. Being someone who is a true believer that a lot of the work in this legislature is done at the committee level, that I disagree the most with my good friend from Watertown. Committees are places where you, as an individual legislator, can have and make the difference. The first order of business of a committee after they get reorganized, once the appointments are done every 2 years, is to adopt the committee rules. And you, as an individual member of that committee, you have the ability to debate, discuss, and change, and make change on those rules of that committee. So why give it up to Rule 17A, to the full House, to make that determination? I want to have the ability as a member of a committee to be able to debate and be able to have a discussion with those committee members, the chair and otherwise, about the rules of the committee that I'm going to be serving in. Be a joint committee or a standing committee of the House, In the standing committee of the House is 11 members. You are one of 11. All you have to convince is the majority of 11. If you really have an idea about any given rule of that committee for the next 2-year session. And executive sessions. You can debate in committee during the executive sessions. You can offer amendments to the bill before you that's going to be reported out either favorably or not favorably. You can offer and debate in committee during executive sessions. I've done that many times. I remember when I first came into this chamber when I was a freshman, I served on the committee then called the Committee on Commerce and Labor, by the way, a wonderful committee. As a freshman, we reported out that particular session a very important reform, the workman's comp reform that we did in 1991-92 session. The executive session of that committee went on into the early hours of the night, or the morning, I might say. We started that executive session early afternoon, and we ended up after midnight. And as a member of that committee, and as a freshman in that committee, I offered amendments during that executive session. I won some, I lost some. Then we had an opportunity again when the bill came to the floor to debate. So why would I, as a member of a committee, give up that ability to influence the rules of that committee, to influence the debate in that committee? Why would I do that? It doesn't make sense to establish a rule against your own ability to do things as a committee member. Talk about the votes, the testimony. That's all public information. In this legislature, every bill that has been filed has to have a public hearing. And during that public hearing, everything is public. There's no such thing, by the way, as part of this proposal change about personal and confidential material. There's no such thing as that. If you go before the committee during a public hearing and testify, that's all public. There's no confidential or personal matters on any testimony. If you don't want to be public, just don't testify. That's how I treat, as a member of a committee, as someone who has had the ability and to chair a committee. In my committee that I have chaired in the past as well, all testimony is public. All testimony is accessible to members of the committee and to members of the House or Senate or to the members of the public. That's public testimony. It was given during a public hearing. Executive sessions, the votes are public, and they are recorded publicly. In addition, the committees that I had the pleasure to chair as well, I take attendance. Being a teacher, obviously, by profession, attendance is very important. Because when you get assigned to a committee, it's our responsibility as members of this House, it's our responsibility to our constituents to make sure we attend those committee hearings that we were assigned to, those committees that we were assigned to. And that information is public as well, that attendance record of the committee. And that, I believe, that's how all committees operate. If there are some committee that doesn't operate in that manner, then you have the opportunity to make that change during the adoption of the committee rules. The committee rules should be adopted by each committee, and each member of each committee should have the ability to influence otherwise, not by Rule 17A. Joint committees, by the way, it's normally 16 members, 11 members of the House, 6 members of the Senate. As the majority in that committee, do you want to give up that ability to influence the rules to a body that only has 6 members in that committee? I don't think so. So I think we need to read sometimes, in the name of transparency, there is lots of transparency on committee work. Lots of public hearings. That's all public. And I speak from someone here, and I don't want to be here bragging about anything, but since I've been in this legislature, I have filed legislation around making government more transparent and open, such as the reform of the open meeting law that had not been reformed since 1971, such as the public records reform that we've done so far. Since 1972, we hadn't reformed those. And we have a responsibility to our constituents to be involved in our committee work, to influence at that committee level. So I hope that the amendment is not adopted.
In order, roll call will be called forthwith and remain open for 3 minutes. Court officers will notify the membership that a roll call is in progress and will remain open for 3 minutes. Time for voting has expired. The clerk will display the tally. 49 in the affirmative, 108 in the negative. The amendment is not adopted.